My name is Laura, and I thought I had the perfect life, a loving husband, a best friend I could trust with my soul. And tonight, we were celebrating something special. 7 years of marriage. The house was warm, filled with laughter, music, and the soft clinking of glasses. Friends and family moved through the rooms, sipping wine and hugging us with bright smiles. It felt right, like the kind of life I had always dreamed of. I wore the blue dress Mark loved, the one he said made my eyes sparkle. And as I walked across the living room, carrying a tray of champagne flutes, I spotted Jenna, my best friend since college, stepping in with her daughter Lily by her side. I beamed and waved them over. "You made it!" Jenna grinned, adjusting the ribbon in Lily's curly hair. We wouldn't miss it. Lily was 4 now, a bubbly, curious little thing who loved drawing and asking questions that made everyone laugh. I leaned down and hugged her. "Hi, sweetheart. Look at you. You're getting so big." She giggled and hugged me tight. "Hi, Auntie Laura." A few hours passed. Guests came and went, chatting about work, kids, vacations. I stood with Mark, our hands gently touching, and I looked around with a full heart. Jenna was across the room, chatting with my cousin near the fireplace, while Lily sat on the couch with a juice box in hand. That's when it happened. The music had gone soft. Most people were finishing dessert. A lull in conversation made the room unusually quiet. And then, in that silence, Lily stood up, walked over to where Mark and I were standing, tugged on his jacket sleeve, looked up at him with her big, innocent eyes, and said, "Daddy, can we go home now?" The room went dead quiet. I mean, dead quiet. Every single person froze. My hand trembled. I looked at Lily, then at Mark. I felt the champagne flute slip from my fingers. It shattered on the hardwood floor. Mark didn't say a word. His face went pale. His mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. I turned slowly toward Jenna. She was staring at Lily, then at me. Her face drained of all color. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I just stood there, heart pounding so loudly I couldn't hear anything else. My hands began to shake. My legs felt weak. I took one step back, then another. And then I turned. And I walked out of my own anniversary party without a single word. My world, everything I thought I knew, had just crumbled around me. And in that one tiny voice from an innocent little girl, my perfect life ended. What would you do if your best friend's child called your husband Daddy at your anniversary party? Drop a comment below. I'm reading every single one. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what happened next. Because this story is only just beginning. After I left the party, I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just drove. I don't even remember where I was going. I just kept my hands tight on the wheel, staring at the road, trying to hold myself together as the night swallowed me whole. How did I not see it? How could I have been so blind? Mark and I had been married for 7 years, and not once in those 7 years did I ever imagine he'd lie to me. Not once did I think he'd betray me. We had something good. Or, at least I thought we did. I met Mark when I was 24. I was working the front desk at a dentist's office. He came in as a new patient. I remember how he smiled, like the whole world stopped when he looked at you. After that, it was dinner, then a weekend trip, then he moved in. Fast. It was the kind of whirlwind love story you tell your grandkids about. He was charming, funny, always knew how to make me feel special. And the way he looked at me in those early days, it felt real. When we got married, Jenna stood by my side as my maid of honor. She cried more than I did during the vows. She made the speech at our reception, talking about how we were meant for each other, how lucky we were. She was my best friend. We had met in college, lived in the same dorm, stayed up late talking about our dreams, our fears, our ridiculous crushes. She even helped pick out my wedding dress. She was part of everything. So when she showed up a few years later pregnant, I didn't judge. She said the father wasn't in the picture. Some guy she didn't want to talk about. Said he was a mistake. That she was keeping the baby but didn't want the drama. I believed her. I trusted her. I was there at the hospital when Lily was born. I held her, kissed her forehead, and promised Jenna I'd be the best auntie ever. And I meant it. There were moments now, thinking back, that didn't sit right. Like the way Jenna would sometimes avoid bringing Lily to gatherings if Mark was around. Or the time she pulled me aside and said, "Lily's starting to ask about her dad. I just told her it's complicated." I remember saying, "Well, when the time's right, just be honest with her." She smiled. "Yeah, maybe one day." One day, and then came today, the day everything unraveled. I sat in my car outside my mother's house, hands still shaking on the steering wheel, just replaying that sentence in my head. "Daddy, can we go home now?" Lily didn't say it by mistake. She didn't whisper it. She said it like it was the most normal thing in the world, like she had said it before, many times. I thought about every birthday party, every dinner Jenna brought Lily to. The way Mark sometimes seemed too generous with her. Not in a creepy way, just involved. He always made sure she had the best gifts, always asked how she was doing. One time I caught him wiping her face after she spilled ketchup, and I remember joking, "You're such a natural. Maybe we're ready for one of our own." He laughed. One day. That phrase again. Now everything felt like it had a hidden meaning, a shadow underneath the words I used to believe were innocent. I took a deep breath and looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked tired. Not just from the night, from the years of trusting too easily, of loving blindly, of holding people close who were holding knives behind their backs. I wasn't ready to confront either of them. Not yet. But I would. And when I did, I wanted the truth. All of it. The house was dark when I returned. The last guests had obviously left. Empty wine glasses were still scattered across the table. Some plates had half-eaten cake, and someone had knocked over a vase on the floor. A few roses lay crushed beside it. It was like the party froze in time the moment I walked out. Like joy had been ripped out of the air and left behind nothing but silence. I closed the door behind me and walked into the living room. And there he was. Mark, sitting in the shadows, on the same couch where he had smiled next to me just hours earlier. His elbows rested on his knees. His head hung low, like the weight of the truth had finally caught up to him. He didn't even flinch when he heard the door close. I stood there for a long second. My throat felt dry. My hands clenched into fists, then relaxed again. "Tell me," I said softly. He looked up slowly. "What?" "Don't pretend you didn't hear," I said. "Just tell me. Is it true?" He opened his mouth, closed it again. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. "She didn't mean anything by it," he finally whispered. "She's just a kid, Laura. Kids say weird things sometimes." I walked closer. "Mark." My voice shook. "Do not lie to me." He stood up, suddenly frantic. Okay, but it's not what you think, all right? It was a mistake." I stared at him. What was a mistake? He hesitated. I took a step closer. "Say it." He exhaled sharply and ran his hand down his face. "It was a long time ago, before she even had Lily. I didn't mean for it to happen. Jenna and we were both drunk. It happened. Once, maybe twice." I closed my eyes, not to cry, but to stop myself from breaking something. "You slept with my best friend." "It wasn't planned," he said quickly. "It was stupid. I regretted it the second it happened." I opened my eyes. "But you kept going back." He didn't answer. That was the answer. I sat down in the chair across from him. My knees felt weak. I folded my hands in my lap and stared at the floor. "So Lily is yours," I said. He didn't deny it. He just sat back down, elbows on his knees again, eyes full of shame, or maybe fear. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know how to tell you." I looked up at him. For a moment, I didn't even recognize the man sitting in front of me. "You were going to lie to me for the rest of our lives?" I asked. "Watch me hold that child, call her my goddaughter, laugh with Jenna like everything was fine, while you two had this disgusting secret? I never meant to hurt you." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. "You never meant to hurt me," I repeated. "You just did it anyway." He opened his mouth again, but I raised my hand to stop him. "I don't want to hear excuses, not tonight, not ever." I stood up. He stood too. "Laura, please, don't leave." "I already did." And I meant it, because the moment Lily said, "Daddy, can we go home now?" something inside me left. The trust, the love, the belief that our marriage had any honesty in it. He looked like he wanted to grab my hand or say something to make it all better. But there was no better. There was no rewind button for this kind of betrayal. I turned toward the stairs and walked up to the bedroom. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just packed a small bag, took my car keys, and left again. This time, I wasn't running. I was getting ready. For answers. And they were going to come from her. The next morning, I didn't go to work. I didn't even go home. I drove straight to Jenna's house. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just showed up, heart pounding, jaw tight, my fingers gripping the steering wheel so hard they ached. As I pulled into her driveway, I saw Lily's tricycle by the porch. The same one Mark had gifted her last Christmas. I remember how Jenna said it was too much at the time, but smiled anyway when Lily squealed and jumped on it. Now I couldn't unsee the weight behind that moment. I walked to the door, raised my hand and knocked. Not once, but hard. 3 sharp knocks that said I wasn't here for small talk. It took a while, but eventually the door creaked open. Jenna stood there in her robe, her hair messy, eyes red like she hadn't slept all night. Maybe she hadn't. We stared at each other in silence for a second. Then she stepped aside. "Lily's in her room watching cartoons," she said quietly. I walked in without saying a word. We sat in the kitchen. No coffee, no chit-chat. Just cold silence and the hum of the fridge in the background. I folded my arms across my chest. "Just tell me." Jenna blinked, but didn't pretend not to understand. She looked down at her hands. "I was going to tell you," she whispered. "When?" I snapped. "After the next birthday party? After the next girls' weekend? Or maybe you were waiting until she called him Daddy again in front of someone else?" She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "Then how was it supposed to happen?" I asked. "You sleep with my husband, have his child, and pretend like nothing happened? You looked me in the eye every day like we were sisters. All those nights you cried on my shoulder? You were hiding this?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. "You don't understand." "Then help me," I interrupted. "Make me understand how my best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone, slept with the man I married, got pregnant, and lied to my face for 4 years. Jenna finally looked at me. "It started one night," she said, voice low. "We had both been drinking. It wasn't planned. He said you two were fighting a lot back then, that he felt misunderstood. It just happened." I scoffed. "Oh, please. Don't you dare try to make it sound like it was my fault." "I'm not—" She shook her head, tears streaming now. "I didn't mean for it to go on, but it did. A few times. Then I found out I was pregnant. I didn't know what to do. He told me he'd handle it, that he'd take care of things, but he never did." I stared at her. "You told me Lily's father was a random guy, that you didn't even remember his name." She looked away. I lied. No kidding. I stood up. I didn't want to destroy your marriage, she said weakly. Then maybe don't sleep with someone's husband, I snapped. She covered her face with her hands and sobbed. I didn't comfort her. Not this time. I just stood there, breathing slowly, trying to keep my own emotions from boiling over. I trusted you, I said quietly. You were the godmother to our future kids. You were supposed to be the one person I could count on. I'm sorry, she whispered. But sorry didn't fix it. Sorry didn't erase 4 years of deception, of letting me play with Lily, buy her gifts, treat her like family, when she was family in a way I didn't even know. I turned to leave. Jenna stood up quickly. Please don't say anything to her. She doesn't know. She still thinks... I paused at the door and looked over my shoulder. She doesn't know... yet. And then I left, because I needed time to think. But the fire inside me? It was growing fast. After I left Jenna's house, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call anyone to talk about what just happened. I drove to the nearest hotel, paid for 2 nights in cash, and sat in silence with the curtains drawn and the lights off. There's something strange that happens when your heart breaks in slow motion. After the shock wears off, after the shaking stops, something colder starts to settle in. Not sadness, not anger, focus. I pulled out a notebook from my bag, wrote down everything I knew, dates, conversations, little moments I used to ignore. I tried to piece together the timeline, to figure out how long they had been lying to me. I needed it all laid out in front of me. And then I picked up my phone. Not to call Mark, not to text Jenna. I searched for a divorce attorney, found one with 5 stars, booked a consultation for the next morning. I wasn't just going to leave quietly. I was going to do this right. The next few days felt like I was living someone else's life. I moved in silence. Every move calculated. I didn't tell my mom, didn't tell my co-workers. I smiled when I needed to. But my mind was on one thing, the truth and proof. I started with the bank accounts. I knew Mark and I had joint access, but I also knew he kept a separate card, just for work expenses, he always said. But I had seen the statements before. One time, I saw a charge at a toy store that didn't make sense. He claimed it was for his boss's kid. Now, I wasn't so sure. I logged in, downloaded all the recent statements, and highlighted every charge that looked suspicious. Toys, groceries in Jenna's neighborhood, restaurant bills on nights I was out of town. It was subtle, but once I looked closely, the pattern was clear. He had been supporting them, not just emotionally, financially. Then I remembered something else, Lily's hairbrush. I had given it to her during a sleepover at our house a few months ago. She left it behind. It was still in the guest bathroom drawer. I drove back to the house while Mark was at work. I moved through the house like a ghost. I didn't take anything but the brush and his toothbrush. I placed both in separate plastic bags. The next morning, I mailed them to a lab. It was expensive, but I didn't care. I wanted evidence. While I waited for the results, I went back to that hotel and dug deeper. I logged into Mark's old laptop, the one he barely used anymore, thinking it was forgotten. But he never deleted his emails. I searched his inbox, scrolled for hours, and then I found them. Old emails from Jenna. Some disguised under a fake name, some not even hidden at all. Messages filled with things that made my skin crawl. I missed you last night. Lily keeps asking when you'll visit. I know you love her. I know you wish things were different. Each one was a knife to the chest. I screenshotted everything, saved them on a flash drive, made backup copies on cloud storage. If they wanted to play games behind my back, fine, but I was going to make sure I had all the cards. By the time the DNA test results came in, I was ready. I didn't even cry when I opened the envelope. 99.98% match. Mark was Lily's father. The truth wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was black and white. I held the paper in my hands and sat quietly for a while, not broken, not even shaking, just calm. Because now, the part of me that used to wonder if I was overthinking it, she was gone. In her place stood someone else. Someone ready to do more than walk away. Someone ready to expose the truth. By the time I finished planning it, I almost admired how quiet and clean it all felt. No screaming matches, no public meltdowns, just precision. I knew if I wanted to expose the truth, I had to do it on my terms, not in anger, not in chaos. I needed witnesses, people who mattered to them, people who mattered to me, people who would never look at Mark or Jenna the same way again. So I picked a date. I told Mark I wanted to talk and invited him to a small dinner at a local bistro we used to frequent, the kind of place with candles and soft jazz in the background. I told him I needed closure, a peaceful talk, just the two of us, and a few of our closest friends. He agreed without question. Of course he did. Guilt has a funny way of making people agreeable. Then I called Jenna. I told her I wanted to finally put the past behind us, that I was willing to sit down, face to face, and talk like adults. I said I wanted to forgive. I even forced a laugh when she hesitated and asked, "Is this a setup?" I said no. I just want peace. And she believed me. I told her to bring Lily, said she could sit with a family friend at another table. I didn't want Lily near the actual conversation. This was between adults, between liars. She agreed. I also invited a few mutual friends, people who knew both Mark and Jenna, people who were at our wedding, people who had always believed in us. I told them I wanted support for an important announcement. I kept it vague. Everyone showed up. We had a private dining room in the back of the restaurant, the kind with velvet curtains and golden wall sconces. I arrived early, placed an envelope on the center of the table, and ordered wine. Jenna arrived first. She wore a soft pink dress and barely looked me in the eyes. Mark came 10 minutes later, looking nervous but trying to act casual. Our friends filled in the rest of the seats, making light conversation, unaware of what was about to happen. I stayed calm. When everyone had their drinks, I stood. "Thank you all for coming," I said gently. I know this was sudden, but I felt like it was time for truth and healing. Jenna shifted in her chair. Mark looked at me, his brow furrowed slightly. "I think we all know things have changed recently," I continued. "But before I can move forward with my life, I just need to say a few things and share something." I reached for the envelope. The room went quiet. I looked straight at Mark. "You told me it was a mistake, something that happened years ago, that it didn't mean anything." His face froze. I turned to Jenna. "And you told me you didn't want to destroy my life, that Lily didn't know the truth." Jenna's hands started to tremble in her lap. I held up the envelope. "This contains proof of what I already knew in my heart, but now it's no longer a feeling. It's fact." I opened the flap and slowly pulled out the DNA test results. Gasps. You could hear a fork drop. I passed the paper down the table. People leaned in, read the name on the page, read the percentage. I watched Jenna's face go white. Mark leaned back in his chair, speechless. One of our friends whispered, "Is this real?" I nodded. "It's real." I then reached into my purse and pulled out printed copies of the emails I had found, folded neatly, highlighted, dated. "I brought these too," I said, "because I want it to be crystal clear what's been happening behind my back for years." Mark reached for the papers with shaking hands. Jenna didn't move. I looked around the room, at the people who thought they knew us, at the people who stood by me at my wedding, and I said calmly, "I invited you all here not to shame them, but so no one would question why I'm walking away, why I'm done, why I'm choosing truth." No one said a word. No one needed to. Because what I had just done wasn't drama. It was justice. They didn't say a word, not at the dinner table. Not even after I left the folder sitting wide open with all their dirty secrets staring back at them like a spotlight they couldn't escape. Mark just sat there, his face blank, his hands frozen on the edge of the table. Jenna looked like a balloon slowly deflating, her eyes darting everywhere but at me. Her mouth opened once like she wanted to speak, but not even an apology could come out. I didn't give them a chance to respond. I stood, picked up my purse, turned to the stunned faces around the table and said, "Thank you all for coming. Now you know the truth. I'll let the lawyers take it from here." And I walked out. But that was just the beginning. The next morning, I filed for divorce. Not quietly, not in secret. I made sure to go through a firm that handled public cases, the kind that show up in the news if the story's juicy enough. And, oh, this one was. I gave them everything. The emails, the statements, the DNA tests, the timeline, the betrayal, the full list of witnesses. Then I pressed one more button. I sent the story, anonymously of course, to a local gossip blog that covered upper-middle-class scandals like candy. They didn't even hesitate. By the next day, the headline was everywhere. Wife exposes husband's affair and love, child with her best friend, at anniversary dinner. I didn't name names. But the people in our circle knew who it was. So did his office, so did hers. By the end of the week, Mark had been called into HR. They said the distraction was damaging client trust. He took a leave of absence. Jenna? Her teaching job at the preschool didn't survive the sudden attention. Parents complained, rumors spread. Her contract was quietly not renewed. They thought they could keep it hidden forever. Instead, I handed them a spotlight. I wasn't done. While the divorce moved forward, I requested full control of all joint assets, citing financial misconduct. My lawyer was sharp, the kind who smiled sweetly in court while shredding the other side to pieces. We found proof that Mark had funneled money to Jenna secretly, thousands of dollars disguised as consulting reimbursements and gift expenses. That wasn't just betrayal. That was fraud. He tried to fight it, but the proof was too strong. The judge ordered him to pay spousal compensation on top of letting me keep the house, the car, and the savings account we'd both contributed to for years. He walked away with nothing but a suitcase and a folder full of shame. And Jenna? She tried to reach out to me, sent messages, left voicemails. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened." She doesn't even know the truth. But I didn't respond. Not once. She wasn't owed forgiveness. Not after what she stole from me. I moved on quietly but confidently. I painted the house, sold the old furniture, replaced the wedding photos with travel pictures and sunsets and mirrors that reflected back a woman I was proud to see again. Some nights I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and just breathed. I was alone, but not lonely, because now I had peace. Real peace. The kind you earn after walking through fire. And as for Mark and Jenna, well, they got exactly what they gave me. A broken home, a ruined name, and a future they couldn't enjoy in public without whispers following them everywhere. I heard through a friend that they tried to make it work. Tried living together, co-parenting, pretending it was love. But love built on betrayal doesn't stand. It crumbles. Just like they did. People ask me sometimes if I regret not forgiving them. If I feel bad for destroying their reputations. My answer is always the same. No. Because I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just made sure everyone saw the pieces.